So today we're going to cover the section on quadratic inequalities. And we basically have 3 steps that we need to follow. So the first step is to get your inequality to have a 0 all by itself on either the left or the right side. Then after everything's been moved over to the one side of your inequality symbol, then we're going to solve it as if it were an equal sign. And the way that we're going to solve it is by factoring. Now, if it cannot be factored, then we're going to either use completing the square or the quadratic formula. After we get the 2 solutions, then we're going to be putting those on our number line. It's going to break our number line up into 3 sections, and then that's when I'm going to find test points. So let's go ahead and try these. Again, I know that's a little overwhelming, but it's not that bad once you see it in action. So here's my first question. Again, my 0 is all by itself. So now I'm going to factor this as if it were an equal sign. So I can go ahead and rewrite it as x squared minus 2x minus 3 equals 0. I'm looking for the factors of -3 that when I combine them give me -2. And those factors are going to be x minus 3 and x plus 1. I now am going to take those 2 factors and set them equal to 0. I'm going to add 3. X equals 3. Subtract 1. X equals -1. Now these 2 solutions that I just got, these are going to go on my number line, and it's going to break it apart. So let me go ahead and go up above here. Now let me go over to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and draw my number line. Now if you want to put all the numbers on there, you can. I'm just going to show the 2 numbers. You're going to put them on here least to greatest. So the -1 will go here and the +3 will go here. So now when we're solving these, I've actually turned my graph into 3 areas. I've got all the numbers over here that are less than -1. All of the numbers in here are in between -1 and +3. And then this section over here is everything that's bigger than 4. So here's where my test point comes in. So I'm going to choose a number to plug into the original inequality from one of the areas. The number I like to plug in is 0. Okay, as long as 0 is not one of these numbers, you can use it as a test point. So I'm going to go back to my original, and I'm going to plug in 0 for x squared, 0 for the x that's next to the -2, and then -3 less than 0. I'm going to follow order of operations. The reason why I like plugging in 0 is really this whole part of the equation just becomes 0. So then now I'm left with 0 minus 3 is less than 0. -3, is that less than 0? Yes, it is. So because this is a true statement, this little section gets a check mark. It's green, it's go. The 2 sides on that are less than that and greater than that, the numbers in these areas are not going to work. The pattern is always the same. So technically, we don't need to test all 3 sections. Pick a number from one of the sections, test it, and then the pattern will repeat. It's going to be a green, a red, a green, a red. So if that first area was the green, then the middle would have been an X. Now, let me just demonstrate. Let me pick a number that's over here. Let's say I plugged in -2 instead to the original. -2 squared. -2 times -2 minus 3 less than 0. So negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. Minus 3 less than 0. See how this is so much more work other than plugging in a 0? So then I get 8 minus 3. 8 minus 3 is 5. Notice this is a false statement. That's why I put an X on top of there. Let's say you didn't want to plug in the negative number. You wanted to plug in positive 4. So you picked the number that was bigger than the 3. So from this section, so then I would have gotten 4 squared minus 2 times 4 minus 3 less than 0. 16 minus 8 minus 3. 16 minus 8 is 8. Minus 3 is 5. Again, it's false. So that's why this section here also got the X. So again, you don't need to do all three. Pick a number from one of the sections. If it's true, you put a green check or just put a check mark. If it's false, you put an X, but then repeat the pattern. X check, X check. Pretty good? So now we have to write this in interval notation. Now, also if we graphed it, I'll show you how to graph it. Yes?
So there can only be like one check?
No. So if the check mark was where the red X's were, those would both be green and the X would have been in the middle.
Oh, okay.
But the pattern repeats. So it's always going to be a check, an X, a check, an X. That's always going to be the pattern. So if I want to make this green. So it's always going to be check, X, check, X. It could start out with X, 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 and then check, check, check. So, but the pattern will repeat. Pretty good? All right, now let's write that in interval notation. So in interval notation, it's going to be from -1, 3, and because it's got this symbol, they're parentheses. So whenever it's in the middle, it's just going to be the two numbers with the appropriate grouping symbol. If the two green checks are on the ends, that's when we're going to bring in the infinity. Now, if they're asking you to graph this, the way that you would graph it is this would have been a parenthesis, parenthesis, and meeting in the middle. Or it could also be close, open circle, and the segment. What I recommend you do when you're doing the WebAssign, if the first time you enter it and it marks it wrong, ask to see an example. Sometimes the example is the same question. But try to use the resources if you're not sure how to input your answer. Everybody good on that one? Let's try the next one. Again, make sure the 0 is either on the left or the right side, and it is. I'm going to change it to an equal sign. I'm going to find the factors of -6 that give me -1, and that's going to be x minus 3, x plus 2. Set each of the factors equal to 0. Solve for x. X equals +3. And x equals -2. I'm now going to add these two numbers to my number line. When you add them to your number line, remember to put them on here least to greatest. So -2 first, then the +3. Again, we need to find a test value. Again, I'm going to find where 0 is located. And I can see that 0 is going to be located here in between -2 and +3. So I'm going to plug in a 0. So 0 squared minus 0 minus 6. -6 less than 0. This one works. So the middle again gets the check mark. The two ends get the X's. So again, if you're graphing, it would be parentheses and connect it, or open circle, interval notation, -2, comma, +3, and you guys can't see that. Let me move the gallery, but here's the interval notation. I'll just slide it over. Pretty good. Now we'll do one where the check marks are on the ends. So again, what we're doing here is making sure that the 0 is all by itself. It is. Change it to an equal sign. Factor. Factors a -20. That give me -1. X minus 5, x plus 4. Solve. Set each of the factors equal to 0. Add 5. Subtract 4. Add these two numbers to your number line. This is how it's going to divide it up. So I have -4 first, +5 second. Anytime you have one of your solutions being negative and the other positive, always know that 0 is going to be located here in the middle. Now, if both of them were positive, then we would know that the 0 would have been over there on the far left. All right, so now again, let's plug in 0 into our original. So 0 squared minus 0 minus 20, greater than or equal to 0. Is -20 greater than or equal to 0? No, it is not. This is false. So now the area with the 0 gets the x, and now the two sides get the check marks. Because again, the pattern will repeat. Check x, check x. Now, if it helps you to write that this was going to -infinity and this side's going to infinity, again, graphically, this would have been a bracket going this way, a bracket this way, or if it lets you put in closed circle. So in interval notation, this one is going to be -infinity up to the -4. It's a bracket because it's a greater than or equal to. The x is the u, and then it starts up again at 5 with a bracket to infinity. Next one, same thing, except for now we have a number in front of x squared. Now, if you guys don't like to factor, you could do quadratic formula or completing the square, okay? It doesn't matter how you get your answer for the two break-aparts for the number line, okay? So when you get to this one, if you look at this and you're like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to factor this thing, you can do quadratic formula. It's just going to take you a little bit longer. I'm going to go ahead and factor it. You can either factor by grouping, guess and test, whatever method you want to try. So I'm going to go ahead and guess and test. So first thing again, set it equal to 0. Factors of 4, I'm going to try 4 and 1. So I'll put 4x here and 1x here. And then my factors of 6 are either 1 and 6 or 2 and 3. I'm going to do 2 and 3. And then it's a -6, so one of them has to be negative. The 2. Good. And when you guess and test, you have to do a quick FOIL now and double check that these factors do go back. And it does. What I always just check is the outside and the inside. Inside was 3x, outside was -8. When I combine them, I do get the -5 I was trying to get in the middle. So I did guess and test correctly. So now I take each of the factors, set them equal to 0. Solve for x on each. So subtract 3. 4x equals -3. Divide by 4. X equals -3/4. And then here add the 2. X equals +2. So now I'm going to take these two, put them on my number line. Again, put them least to greatest. Again, I got a negative and a positive answer here, so I can choose 0. So 0 will be located here. Again, plug it into the original. So 4 times 0 squared minus 5 times 0 minus 6 greater than 0. Negative 6 greater than 0, because all these disappeared. This is false. So this gets the X, and the two sides get the checks. Again, if you were graphing it, it would be parentheses pointing that way, parentheses that way, or open, open. And again, the interval notation would be from negative infinity up to negative 3/4. Union that with 2 to infinity. All parentheses around everything. Oh, you guys can't see that. Pinch that in. Okay. Everybody good? 1 to 5. So again, all the previous ones, they already had the 0 all by itself. I need to get this and have that 0 over there. So I'm going to move the 12 over. Now, if you want to distribute also, you can do that. And a color you guys can see. So I'm going to subtract 12. So I get x times x plus 1 minus 12. I now need to distribute the x. So it becomes x squared plus x minus 12. If you would have preferred to distribute first, you can, and then move the 12. It doesn't really matter. Now I set it equal to 0. And now I factor. Factors in negative 12, that give me positive 1, will be x plus 4 and x minus 3. Set each of the factors equal to 0. So x plus 4 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. Subtract 4, x equals negative 4. Over here, add 3, x equals positive 3. Again, set up your number line, least to greatest. Again, pick a checkpoint or a test point. Again, 0. It wasn't one of my answers, so I can use it. So now I'm going to plug it in. 0 times 0 plus 1, less than 12. Anything times 0 is 0. This is a true statement. So this section where the 0 gets the check mark, the two outside get the X. So this was just a simple less than symbol, so parentheses, meeting in the middle, or again, open circle, open circle. The interval notation here would be from negative 4, comma 3. So again, we need to get the 16 on the other side because it needs to be equal, or the inequality has to have a 0 there. Change it to an equal sign. And now factor this. X plus 4, x minus 4. Set each of the factors equal to 0. Subtract 4, x equals negative 4. Add 4, x equals positive 4. Add those two numbers to the number line so we can get our breaking points. Again, choose a test point. Again, I'm going to choose 0. It's the easiest. Again, if you'd rather choose negative 5 or negative 10 or even 5, any number bigger than 4, you can also do that. Okay, so I'm going to plug in 0. 0 squared greater than or equal to 16. This is a false statement, so that middle section is wrong. That had the 0. These are the check marks. So again, graphing, this would have been a bracket pointing that way, bracket pointing that way, or again, a closed circle. So interval notation would have been negative infinity up to the negative 4 with a bracket, unioned, starting again at 4 to infinity.
It's only false because of the equal to part of it, right? Because like
No,
0 is not equal to 16, but it is less than 16.
Yeah, but it's greater than. So they're both false. 0 is not great.
Okay.
Good? Okay, let's try the next one. So again, make it so that it's got a 0. So I'm going to add 1. X squared plus 4x plus 1 greater than 0. Again, make it an equal sign. Now, here's a scenario where I'm giving you a problem that cannot be factored. So now you're forced to either do quadratic formula or completing the square. I'm going to do quadratic formula. So negative 4 plus or minus 4 squared minus 4 times that a times that c, all under the square root, 2 times a, negative 4 plus or minus 16 minus 4. 16 minus 4 is 12. Got to break down the square root of 12. So this gives me negative 4 plus or minus square root of 12 becomes 2 square root 3. And now I can also simplify this fractions. Make these 1s, make this a 2. Final answer here, negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 3. Now I have to add these to my number line. So this one's going to be negative 2 minus root 3. This will be negative 2 plus square root 3. Now, we would give this problem in class with no calculator, so you would have to approximate this. I'm not sure if we're going to allow calculators or not, but again, the square root of 3 is approximately 1.7. So this is actually negative 2 minus 1.7, so this is negative 3.7. And over here, negative 2 plus 1.7, and this is going to be negative 0.3. So my 0 in this problem isn't in the middle, it's actually located over here. You guys can't see that. So my 0 is the far right section. So let's plug in 0. So 0 squared plus 4 times 0 greater than negative 1. Is 0 greater than negative 1? Yes, it is. That is true. So this gets the check. This gets the X. This gets the check. So interval notation would be negative infinity up to the negative 2 minus root 3, unioned with negative 2 plus root 3, comma, infinity. Again, graphing, this would have been parenthesis or open circle going that way. Now, I know the bell's going to ring in 1 minute. The next one is just the same thing. We're just going to move the 48, and then we're going to factor by grouping. So 2x cubed minus 3x squared minus 32x plus 48 greater than 0. What we'll do here is make groups. Well, let me rewrite it as an equal sign. Make your groups, and you factor by grouping here. So from the first group, my GCF, all right. Okay, so for here, I'm going to factor by grouping. My GCF of the first group is x squared, and then I'm left with 2x minus 3. GCF of that blue group is going to be negative 16, and again, you're left with 2x minus 3. Put the two GCFs here together. So this becomes x squared minus 16, and then the 2x minus 3. Notice on the x squared minus 16, I can keep factoring. And now I set each of these factors equal to 0. This one is actually going to have 3 different checkpoints or stopping points here. So set each of the factors equal to 0. Subtract 4. X equals negative 4. Add 4. Divide by 2. And x equals 3 over 2. I'm now going to add all 3 numbers to my number line, and it's going to break it into 4 sections. So here, the negative 4, then the next thing will be the 3 over 2, and then the positive 4. You can see that 0 is going to be located here. So now let me plug it in. So my original problem, 2 times 0 cubed minus 3 times 0 squared minus 32 times 0 greater than negative 48. So here becomes a 0, a 0, a 0, 0 greater than negative 48. This is true. So this gets the green check mark. Then again, the pattern repeats. X, X, and now we have a check. So this one, the interval notation, again, if you think about this, the original symbol was just a greater than. So parentheses going this way, or open, going this way. So my interval notation is just use your number line. So for here, it's negative 4 up to the 3/2. The red X is the union, and then it starts again at the 4 and goes to infinity. Let me write it lower. Negative 4, comma, 3/2, unioned with 4 to infinity. So that is it for the notes on 1.8a, and you do have your web assign assignment.